The One Thing by Gary Keller. Welcome to my channel. My name is Samuel and I want to make self-growth normal. If you want to make self-growth normal, because I don't want to do it alone, and who doesn't want to make self-growth normal, then make sure to smash that like button. Gary Keller, co-founder of Keller Williams Real Estate. You've probably seen some signs and seen advertisements about them. Fastest growing real estate company in the US. He has other books about real estate, services, and investing, and those are like one, old and boring. I'm just kidding. They're pretty dope, but their knowledge is a little, it's timeless. It overlaps into other areas of business and life, and yet despite this, two, for the most part, very specific still. So what I love about this book, chances are probably like Keller Williams Real Estate, you've heard about this one, is that it's not just about approach, it's also about mindset. It's not just about mindset, it's also about approach. And my point is novelty here. I mean, how often do you hear about books that really combine the two in a way that isn't corny? The main idea in this book is that the one thing, because there's always the one thing that's required to achieve success in any motive is to focus. Focus, I feel like that's going to be a big thing in this review, on the one thing that is required to achieve success in any motive. Have you ever done a bunch of different things and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting so much done? Let's say you have. But after a few weeks, months, maybe years, for me it was 3 years, you begin to feel like you're kind of spinning your wheels and you wonder if you've wasted all this time. I was making music and beats and videos. I put out, I don't know, like 200-300 videos in a year and a half or so, mostly about different topics. All of them really had not that much to do with each other. And I think a huge reason is that I didn't really internalize the stuff in this book. And I looked at the results that I had accumulated in that time, and I was just so disappointed at myself. If you've ever let yourself down like this, you know how much it hurts. How much it can hurt, at least, to have to swallow your pride in order to get to doing the next right thing. The one thing, and for me, the one thing this whole time, it seems, has been the normalization, making self-growth normal. The next right thing, the one thing for me then, was dropping everything in the time that I spent on my side hustle, and putting up reviews of books in business, self-development, and technology. Aside from the 7+ figure career path laid out by the course that taught me this YouTube ranking stuff, courtesy of Sean Cannell and Think Media, my reasoning is that people do reviews in one. They don't do it in all three. So it's a few niches I'm targeting. It's not just one of them. I could do one, but I feel like too many people are probably in each one, especially self-development. Just as, if not more importantly, I think the next right thing for humankind to do consists of smashing that like button for the algorithm if you haven't done so already, and self-education in these three topics: self-development, business, and technology. I've also looked at quite a few other people's reviews. I'm not saying, thirdly, that they're boring, but if I were the average person, I couldn't exactly see myself kind of simply watching them out of entertainment, only to find myself taking their contents more seriously over time to the point where I actually buy the books, start doing what the books say, and create a life I'm more than proud to look back at in the end. Does that make sense? It's usually one thing that skyrockets companies into totally different stratospheres of achievement. For Ford, it was the Model T. Geico, it was the 15% or more on car insurance. And probably maybe the gecko. Google, it was AdSense. YouTube, it was Google AdSense. Facebook, it was Google AdSense. I'm just kidding. Facebook has their own ad model, but what made that so effective was probably their news feed and how that tied into it. Apple, it was the Apple Watch. Just kidding. It was the iPhone, of course. Tesla, it was the Model 3, but focusing on one thing at a time and growing from there, compounding, kind of like the compound effect by Darren Hardy that I reviewed recently, is what got them where they are today. If your company does not know its one thing today is to figure out its one thing. The problem with the one thing is that it's easy to explain, but it's not always easy to buy into, because in this day and age, we are bombarded with more information in a day, let alone an hour, than our ancestors chapters would receive in a lifetime. So the author explains the myths and misconceptions that surround the one thing in following chapters. I would argue that people not easily understanding these things is more than anything like one of the most detrimental side effects of the digital age. Has everything become so denuanced that it's like, well, he bought a property, Mr. Keller, Gary Keller, and then he bought another, and then he bought a bunch of properties, and now he's very financially independent? It's very surprising to me, kind of, how much personal productivity plays into this book. It seems like that was a major, target that he was aiming at. It's not surprising at all when he talks about the marshmallow test and what I like to think of as the biggest the biggest practical enemy of poor people, the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. There are hints of social conditioning, lies of determining success. Education, for example. I mean, just a first grade teacher couldn't exemplify the entirety of education, especially the system in the United States, but I don't know. I think I kind of see it as, maybe I'm just extremely biased. Michael Phelps, his first grade teacher, he had ADHD. She said I have ADHD, in case that's not obvious, said to his mom that, this kid can't focus and he will never be able to focus on anything. When he started swimming, he still couldn't focus, but at the same time, actually not at the same time, this was time passed, but he set dozens of world records since then. And that's because he was disciplined in the right areas of his life. He was focusing on the right things that were needed to be focused on. Not because he took notes and answered a bunch of useless questions correctly. And not to say that that doesn't require lots of effort and focus on its own. Time with one thing is time away from another. And this is what makes the idea of work-life balance kind of impractical. As opposed to balance, Jeff Bezos likes to talk about work-life harmony with Amazon. I admire this book for how many underlooked resources Gary Keller really inspects, like time and focus. And he's like, discipline, this is very strange. Let's ignore that. What about willpower? I don't know. Let's ignore that too. But wait, there's more. There's more to ignore, included but not limited to the definition of work-life balance, as well as the notion that living big is scary and stressful. Life with purpose, and a lot of the rest in general, has a lot to do with intention. And it's a lot of soft talk about what we are aiming to do individually. But then the talk gets hard when he kind of shifts and he sort of pivots back to productivity. But I noticed that focus is such a focus of this book alone that it's kind of the common thread, it seems, more than anything throughout, across the chapters, including the ones toward the end about the 3 commitments and the 4 thieves, let alone the 6 lies we just went over. I think some of the most, for me at least, especially because of the ADHD or whatever, ones that are probably the most helpful I found were the 6 different lies and the 4 thieves. Thieves, well, those are what to say no to. So many things throughout our lives, it seems, have convinced us to kind of just say yes to everything. And so it doesn't occur to us. Warren Buffett says that the biggest difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. Let's go over the 4 thieves. I want to go over more valuable material from the books in these reviews, but I think the more feedback I get from these videos, the easier it is for me to focus. There, see, we go, we focus on what matters most to the education of myself and, of course, the viewers. Thief 1 is saying no to things which come your way that don't matter as much as the one thing, which we just went over. What it says to say yes to, however, is smashing that like button in case you haven't already for the YouTube algorithm. Thief 2 is the fear of chaos. And again, the whole thing about, having problems that are too big, it's scary. Grant Cardone says this in the 10X rule, that having bigger problems is a sign of growth anyway. You want to have the same problems your whole life the same size? Are you going to live a life of ease and comfort, or a life of service and adventure? You want to just spend the rest of your life trying to quarantine and chill with your girlfriend or something? Which, by the way, I would probably be doing if I didn't take the initiative to spend a good amount of time during this quarantine on these reviews. Thief 3 is poor health habits. The thing is, you simply should just stop washing your hands and showering. No, I'm just kidding. It's the typical, like, it's basically the typical get enough sleep, make sure you're eating the right amount of times or whatever during the day, and the vegetables. I'll get into more books about this in the future. Thief 4 is I don't want to say it's that touchy of a topic when your environment doesn't, like, agree with your goals. I'm so psyched about this because I'm so, like, energetic about my goals. Everyone in your environment needs to know about your goals. I love telling my coworkers about my one thing. I don't care if they care or not. Someday I know for a fact that they're going to, and that's why. But what matters for now is that they just know, at least, what it is. And I suggest you do the same. You need to be doing fewer things with more effect instead of doing more things with side effect. The things that are most important don't always scream the loudest. To do two things at once is to do neither. Success is about doing the right thing, not about doing everything right. Be careful about how you interpret the world. It really is like that. What did all of this get me? It got me success, and it got me sick. Eventually, it got me sick of success. Even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. Direction 1. Overall, this is a very fun book. It's a very fun listen. Very accessible. I have no idea what I would change about it. If you don't know what your one thing is after watching this far into the review, check this book out. If you do know what your one thing is after watching this far into the review, but you want to get closer to it and you're not exactly sure how, then check this book out. That is what I would recommend. That's who I would recommend this book to. If you do know your one thing, what is it? What's your one thing? Please let me know in the comments below. I'm very curious. Direction 2. If you like this book, check out The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. A lot of things in this book reminded me of that one. The habit building material reminded me almost disjointedly of Millionaire Success Habits by Dean Graziosi. The wise Dean Graziosi. The One Thing by Gary Keller. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video if you want to check those out too. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below, and also let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't get why people, they watch all the way to this point in my reviews and they don't subscribe. But if you have subscribed and you want to turn up just a notch to turn on that notification bell to receive a notification every time I drop a new video, that would mean so much to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere, and I will see you then.